Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, as Seoul awaits a response from Pyongyang for its proposal to resume reunions of families separated since the Korean War. South Korea says it will not link the suspended joint Mount Geumgangsan tour issue to the family meetings. With President Park's 3-year economic plan to further boost Korea's domestic demand in line with export industries, experts forecast external factors such as the US Fed's stimulus tapering and the weak Japanese yen could have some negative effects on domestic growth this year. Plus, the first batch of chemical arms materials has been transported out of Syria for destruction as part of the UN-backed deal to eliminate the country's chemical arsenal. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Wednesday, January 8th. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul. We begin with the latest on President Park Geun-hye's New Year's proposal for family reunions. No response yet from Pyongyang, but experts say the president's offer is likely to go some way to mending soured inter-Korean ties. Han Da-eun reports.
Following in the footsteps of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's friendly New Year's message, President Park Geun-hye also made a conciliatory gesture on Monday, suggesting a resumption of inter-Korean family reunions for those separated since the Korean War. Pyongyang unilaterally and abruptly canceled reunions planned for September, just days before they were to take place. So could President Park's proposal serve as the touchstone for friendlier inter-Korean relations this year? Experts say yes.
I think the proposal will serve as momentum to improve strained inter-Korean ties. President Park did urge North Korea to abandon its nuclear program, but overall, her speech has left the door open for dialogue. North Korea doesn't want further tensions now either, as it's weathering some internal instability.
Seoul's Unification Ministry, however, made clear on Tuesday that the issue of family reunions will not be linked to the halted inter-Korean tourism project near Mount Geumgangsan. The announcement is being interpreted by many as a way to block North Korea from taking advantage of family reunions to restart tourism operations. Seoul maintains the stance that tours to the Mount Geumgang resort will not resume unless Pyongyang claims responsibility for shooting a South Korean tourist dead in 2008. But some experts say the issue of the Mount Geumgangsan project won't get in the way of restarting inter-Korean dialogue.
Even if North Korea attempts to mix the two issues, I think the two sides will be able to find middle ground, as they've now both entered a phase of seeking out dialogue.
Analysts also add Seoul's latest offer will serve as a barometer of North Korea's sincerity in mending ties with the South. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Over in Washington, South Korea and the United States agreed to further bolster joint combat readiness to deal with possible North Korea provocations. During their meeting Monday, South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel underscored the role of the two allies' combined defense posture on the Korean Peninsula as a strong deterrent against North Korean provocations. While Hagel assessed their alliance serves as a linchpin for peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region, the ministers vowed to strengthen the combined defense posture by acquiring critical military capabilities. We're also getting reports that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, after his meeting with Minister Yoon Tuesday, said Seoul and Washington are united in dealing with Pyongyang's nuclear and missile activities that threaten stability in the region. And back here in Seoul, the floor leader of Korea's main opposition Democratic Party has proposed setting up a special parliamentary committee to discuss amending the constitution, which was last revised in 1987. Chun Byung-hun asked National Assembly Speaker Kang Chang-hee Tuesday for his support in kickstarting a parliamentary discussion on improving the presidential system and amending outdated constitutional provisions. This after President Park on Monday said talks on the amendment could further delay other important issues. Kang agreed to launch an advisory committee soon and have it submit a proposal for amending the constitution. Chun also proposed holding an inter-Korean parliamentary meeting as a means of boosting cooperation and stability on the Korean peninsula. The Korean government has been laying out some ambitious economic plans which are primarily focused on boosting incomes and creating jobs. Our Hwang Jie takes a look at what's ahead in 2014.
During a meeting with economic policymakers on Tuesday, Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok reiterated the government's 3-year economic innovation plan. Under the plan, the country's growth potential is expected to grow to around 4%, and the annual per capita income is forecast to exceed $30,000, with sights on reaching 40,000. The government also aims to achieve a 70% employment rate.
We will come up with a roadmap for the 3-year economic innovation plan by the end of February.
Although experts say the goals that make up the plan are not easily attainable, they add that it's not impossible. But in order to get there, they point to the importance of boosting domestic demand.
Export industries that local companies mainly concentrate on have a limited impact on the domestic economy, since they create fewer than expected jobs. It's now important to boost the domestic demand, in particular by strengthening the nation's service sector.
Regarding the growth prospects for this year, economists cite a number of major risks stemming from the global economy that could affect the domestic economy. That includes the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision last month to taper its $85 billion per month bond-buying stimulus measures, the slowing Chinese economy, and Abenomics in Japan, which is pushing the Japanese yen lower while eroding the price competitiveness of Korean exporters.
The current trend of the weakening Japanese yen will hurt Korea's exporters and could eventually lead to a reduction in Korea's overall growth rate by 0.1 percentage points per year.
In terms of uncertainties at home, the snowballing household debt problem and the sluggish real estate market are cited as major variables that could cut the nation's growth rate. Experts say, however, that the recovery we're seeing in advanced nations is still a good sign for the Korean economy. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
As part of President Park's economic vision, the government's push to ease investment regulations in the service sector to boost domestic demand is showing some signs of progress. But as our Kwon So-hwa reports, challenges remain and the voices of dissent are growing louder.
A bill proposed to ease regulations for industrial complex investments was passed at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, one day after President Park Geun-hye placed an emphasis on boosting domestic demand by deregulating the service sector.
올해 투자 관련 규제를 백지 상태에서 전면 재검토해서 꼭 필요한 규제가 아니면 모두 풀겠습니다.
As another follow-up measure to President Park's plan, the ruling Saenuri Party said on Tuesday that it will focus on passing laws related to streamlining regulations at a parliamentary extra session scheduled for February. They say about 20 bills were pushed back in 2013. According to the party's think tank, merely passing the pending bills could bump up the nation's economic growth rate by 0.4%. One of the bills the Saenuri Party proposed last year was related to a zoning law that says no hotels can be built within 200 meters of an elementary, middle, or high school. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance expects that lifting the restriction could result in 60 new hotels in the country and about 47,000 new jobs. However, the main opposition Democratic Party stood in opposition to the bill, claiming it would damage the environment for education. Another pending law would allow casinos to be built and operate on Korean cruise lines, a move designed to attract more foreign tourists to the country. The Democratic Party, however, said the change could lead to a growth in gambling addiction. The party also expressed concerns that President Park's aim of easing investment regulations is a move towards privatization, especially in the health sector, something that could lead to a rise in medical costs, a drop in quality, and polarization among economic classes. President Park, meanwhile, will be leading the ministerial meeting for the regulation reforms herself. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And speaking of a stressor to the economy, new data from Korea's central bank shows the nationwide household debt grew at a faster clip in 2013. As Korean households plunge further and further into debt, concerns are rising that the growing financial burden may hurt domestic demand. Our Paul Lee has the details.
The Bank of Korea released data on Tuesday showing that the country's household debt reached an all-time high last year. Outstanding household lending by local banks and non-bank financial institutions totaled a record $639.5 billion as of the end of November. The increase of $4.7 billion from October marks the largest monthly gain in 5 months since a nearly $6.2 billion on-month advance in June. The central bank says the growth in mortgage loans expanded due in part to an increase in housing transactions during the cited period. The latest tally shows that Korean households are feeling the burden of massive debt. The nation's household credit, which includes bank loans and purchases on credit, hit a fresh high of over $931 billion as of the end of September. At this current pace, that figure is expected to surpass about $940 billion by November. And compared to 2004, the nation's household debt level has more than doubled. Other statistics have shown that Korean households have also lost their spending power. Household debt against disposable income rose to 136% last year, the highest ratio in a decade. The new data comes ahead as BOK policymakers are scheduled to hold a rate-setting session for January on Thursday. Analysts widely expect the central bank to freeze the key interest rate at 2.5% for the 8th consecutive month. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Some disappointing news for Samsung Electronics. Asia's biggest technology company has turned in a worse-than-expected earnings report for the fourth quarter of last year. And with its main rival Apple poised to extend its reach into the Chinese market later this month, experts say Samsung will have to breathe fresh life into its mobile division. Our Yurian has more.
The world's largest smartphone maker surprised analysts with its lower-than-expected earnings announcement. Samsung Electronics said Tuesday that its operating profits reached 8.3 trillion won, or roughly $7.8 billion in the October to December period. This falls far short of the most bearish outlook of $8.2 billion and also represents the company's lowest quarterly profit in more than a year.
The profit rate fell sharply in the smartphone sector. As competition grew fierce in China, the company saw high marketing costs. It also had to set aside funds to pay for fines in connection to lawsuits with Apple.
Analysts also point to the bonus payments to employees as another reason. They were given out to mark the 20th anniversary since Samsung chairman Lee Gun-hee set out an ambitious roadmap to turn his company into a global technology leader. Looking ahead, analysts say Samsung Electronics will do better this quarter than last on the back of strong semiconductor sales. But it seems that the era of explosive profits fueled by the tech giant's cutting-edge smartphones is over. While the company still faces hefty marketing costs, it now faces pressure to offer smartphones that aren't just better, but cheaper as well. It appears inevitable that profits will decline as its average selling prices continue to slide amid increased competition from low-cost smartphones. Analysts forecast single-digit growth or a slight contraction for the company's mobile division this year. On top of that, Apple's fierce marketing strategies loom as another threat this year. Starting late next week, Apple will enter China's $80 billion market, challenging Samsung's tight grip on the market there. Apple is also expected to start selling smartphones with larger screens near the end of the year, putting it in direct competition with Samsung's Galaxy Note series. Yurian, Arirang News.
if you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday that the first batch of chemical weapons materials left Syria on Tuesday, the first step of a UN-backed deal to rid the civil war-torn country of its deadly chemical arsenal. The UN and the International Chemical Weapons Watchdog overseeing the weapons destruction said the materials were loaded onto a Danish vessel and left the northern port of Latakia. A U.S. Navy vessel will ultimately take the cargo out to international waters where the materials will be destroyed. The mission is part of a UN deal brokered by Russia and the U.S. that aims to eliminate Syria's chemical arsenal by the middle of this year. The deal came in response to the chemical weapons attack last August that left hundreds of civilians dead. The coldest weather to grip North America in decades caused by a blast of air from the polar vortex is spreading south and east across the continent. The bone-chilling temperatures shattered records Tuesday, with the mercury plunging to minus 27 degrees Celsius in Chicago and to minus 14 degrees Celsius in Georgia, making it the coldest day the southeastern state has seen in 44 years. Montana recorded the coldest temperature, though, with the wind chill making it feel like minus 53 degrees Celsius. Schools have been shut down, people urged to stay indoors, and air travel has become a nightmare, with more than 4,300 flights canceled, nearly half of those in Chicago. More than a dozen deaths have been linked to the dangerously low temperatures. The smog-filled skies above China are a visible reminder of the heavy price the nation is paying for its rapid economic development. A medical report released recently suggests as many as 500,000 people are dying each year in China due to air pollution. Our Connie Kim has the details.
The smog-cloaked skylines of Chinese cities aren't just an eyesore, they're affecting the health of Chinese citizens. A report published in the Lancet Medical Journal says that air pollution in China is responsible for between 350,000 to 500,000 premature deaths every year. Former Chinese Health Minister Chen Zhu and the co-authors of the report used information from the World Bank and the World Health Organization that included real-time air monitoring data across cities. Recognizing the growing problem, the Chinese government has invested $280 billion to crack down on major polluters. The measures are expected to cut down premature deaths in the nation by up to 200,000 annually. But there is no easy fix. While industrial and coal plants, along with vehicles, are known to be the major polluters, Chen, the author of the study, said the multiple sources of pollution in China make it difficult to control. The smog belt in China had been mainly confined to the capital city of Beijing, but it has rapidly expanded to other cities like Shanghai and Nanjing. On Wednesday, the Chinese government issued its highest-level smog warning in the northern and central regions and advised people to avoid outdoor activities. It's a growing problem that doesn't just affect China. The Korean government issued fine dust warnings for the first time ever in December after it blew over across the West Sea, and additional warnings have come in recent weeks. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A papal visit could be on the horizon. Vatican insiders say Pope Francis is keen to visit Korea in the summer or fall. If he does make the visit, Francis would be the first pontiff to visit the country in 25 years. Shin Se-min reports.
A Korean Catholic Church spokesperson said Tuesday that a visit by Pope Francis to Korea could come sometime in August or October, when two separate major Catholic events will be held in the nation. The 6th Asian Youth Day will be hosted in Daejeon in August, while 2 months later, a ceremony to beatify 124 Korean Catholic martyrs could be held. Pope Francis is currently reviewing the case for beatification for Paul Yoon-ji Chung and his 123 companions who were tortured and killed in 1791 for practicing their faith. The Catholic Church of Korea has been requesting that Pope Francis visit the country since shortly after he was inaugurated last year and said it has been receiving positive feedbacks from the Vatican. If Pope Francis does make the trip, it will be the first papal visit to Korea since Pope John Paul II came in 1989. Along with Pope's possible visit, there is speculation that a Korean archbishop may be created a cardinal at an appointment ceremony at the Vatican next month. And if appointed, that person would be the third Korean cardinal ever. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off on the ice. Now with the Sochi Winter Games right around the corner, speed skater Lee Sang-hwa went into her final tune-up at the 44th KSU President's Cup's National Speed Skating Competition on Monday. Now the Vancouver gold medalist at the 500-meter women's event finished first with a time of 38.11 seconds, putting her preparations for the Sochi Games on the right track. While the final time is well short of her world record time of 36.36 seconds, she seems to be in great form. The 25-year-old hopes to work on her conditioning and stay in shape for the next month. And staying on winter sports, for the first time ever, a Korean has won gold medal in the skeleton event as Yoon Sung-bin finished first with a time of 1 minute 45.73 seconds at the 6th round of the Intercontinental Cup in Canada. Now the 20-year-old hopes to use this momentum over to the Sochi Winter Games as fans in Korea hope for another surprise win next month. All right, with that said, moving on to some Tuesday night KBL action, we take a look at the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus take on Anyang KGC. And of course, going into the game here, first quarter of the game, Moon Tae-young leading the way for Mobis as he puts up 12 points in the quarter as Mobis takes a slim 22-21 lead before going into halftime with a 35-33 lead. Now the second half of the game is as tight as ever, but thanks to Rod Benson's 11 points in the third, Mobis extends their lead to 3 points going into the fourth. Now KGC just unable to catch up to Mobis in this game as Mobis hangs on to take this game 69-66. And now finishing things off with some Tuesday night's V-League action as Russian cast Vespid hope to pull off an upset win over the Korean Air Jumbos. And taking a look at the highlights here, despite 11 errors in the first set, Russian Cash's offense looking great from the start as they take the first set 25-23. But those errors look to be costly later in the game as Korean Air answers back with the next three sets, taking the second, third, and the fourth set 25-21, 25-19, and 25-18, with Michael Sanchez putting up 34 points on the night. But the biggest difference in this game is Korean Air posting up 15 blocks on the night as they take this game 3-1. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, we're waking up to a somewhat mild morning today, but afternoon highs should be 2 to 3 degrees lower than yesterday. And today we do expect snow and sleet mixing in with the rain in much of the country from early morning. While Gyeongsangbuk-do is expecting up to 5 centimeters of snow, and the rest of the country should see 10 to 30 millimeters of rainfall, and all of the precipitation should start to taper off from the upper parts of the peninsula from this afternoon. And now the nation should get ready for a big freeze as the temperatures will plunge tonight. And tomorrow morning will wake up to freezing side, and Friday is expected to be the coldest day of the year, bringing the real taste of mid-winter weather. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju will peak at 4, and Busan will see a high of 6 in the afternoon. Now for other regions, it looks like Jeju will reach to 10 in the afternoon. Daejeon and Dokdo will get up to 3 and 5, but the top temperature in Geumgangsan mountain will be at -5. Now that's all for now, and hope you have a wonderful Wednesday.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.